Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast, the podcast where Steve and I chat about all things Porsche. Steve's here from sunny Sydney. Hi, Steve.
Hi, mate. How you going? It's cloudy over.
Cloudy?
It's going to storm.
It's pretty nice here. Everyone knows I'm still in Bahrain. I can see out the window today. You know, we live in a part of Bahrain called Sanabis. People from Bahrain will know where that is. And we have a lot of listeners from Bahrain, by the way. I just noticed last night we're number 1 in Bahrain again for automotive podcasts, and we're number 6 in leisure podcasts in Bahrain. So there you go, Steve.
Leisure,
because I think I must have put that category on the Apple Podcast somewhere, leisure, because I think with automotive podcasts, it's leisure then automotive. That's how you have to pick it. So you're in the group leisure, and then part of that is automotive. Apple has weird categories. I hate these things when you go.
Leisure, I might just take off my pants while we're doing this recording.
Yeah, no. Well, leisure because you've got your leisure wear on while you're talking to me. That's how it works, right?
My leisure wear is buff.
No, what I was going to say about Bahrain, I really like being in places where I can see water. It makes me feel happy. It makes me feel relaxed. I don't know why. I think it's always been the case. And, you know, here when we look out the window, we can see the water because we're high up and you can see the water across the buildings. And in London, obviously the flat in London, you can see the water, and the new flat in London is obviously right on the Thames, so you can see the water. I don't know, it's just something about it. It just makes me feel relaxed. You know, every time in the morning in London when I come out and I make coffee and for my wife in the mornings, and then I see the water, I see the Thames, and I see the view, and it's like, I don't know, you just kind of take a deep breath and you feel much better. I don't think I'll ever be able to own a water view in Sydney, but it would be nice.
Yeah, you don't want to go there, mate. You're paying handsomely for that.
Yeah, I was looking at property prices. For the listeners overseas, if you ever want to see crazy property prices and you think that your property is expensive in US or in Europe or whatever, London not so much. Maybe London outside of London. Just look at Sydney property prices. Just go into domain.com.au and look at property prices in Sydney, and you will die when you see that you have to get a pretty ordinary house in Sydney now. It costs around $3 million. Even in places like the Blue Mountains, which used to be cheap, which I've been looking at for fun, you know, they're $2.5 million, $3 million. So I just don't understand. Prices have just gone insane.
Yeah.
Why am I talking about Sydney?
Incomes haven't gone with that too.
No, that's the problem. Incomes haven't changed, have they, Steve? Well, they have slightly, but they haven't gone up in the same percentage as property prices. That's for sure.
My industry's gone down. Cost of living's gone up, but I reckon the average salary in advertising would have gone down easily. I don't have anything to back that up with, but I'm pretty sure that would be the case.
Where are the facts, Steve? Where are the facts?
Don't have any facts, mate. It's all bullshit here.
The good news is, and I may as well announce it now because some people know, I mean, Steve knows, I did put a little bit of a cryptic post on Instagram, so I think I got about 20 messages from people, so that's really nice, people saying, great, at last. Got a flight back to Sydney. I almost can't believe it. It took me, I don't know whether I told you, Steve, the whole story, but literally the other day when the Australian government announced that there will be no more quarantine, no more cap, as long as you have a approved vaccine, which we do, even though we got it done in the Middle East here in Bahrain. In fact, we have 3 shots of the vaccine, so we should be safe. Australia announced that it was opening up. So as soon as that announcement came out, and for the listeners overseas, you know, Australia's been in lockdown now. You know, you haven't been able to travel to Australia since really 2020. And, you know, we didn't need to go back permanently, but we needed to go back, you know, to check on things. And we were never intending on being away from January 2019 until, you know, end of 2021. So it's a long time. And as everyone knows, my 911 has been sitting for that amount of time, and I'll get onto that part of it as well, Steve. But the interesting part is Australia did the announcement. We called Singapore Airlines straight away because that's who our flight was with. And they basically said, yes, we know that's happening, but we have to catch up. We haven't allocated any flights yet. It's going to take us some time. The guy that we called first, and we're Chris Gold flyers on Singapore Airlines, the guy that we called first said, you know, you have to probably call back in a week and then it'll probably be sorted. And I said to Tasha, I said, I'm not calling back in a week. You know, I'm not going to risk, you know, missing out on a flight or missing out on the right flight. So the next day, there was another announcement on Singapore Airlines website, because I kept checking their updates on their website and their Twitter feed, basically saying at 12 o'clock on that day, which I think was Friday, 12 o'clock on that day, they would be booking seats again. So at 12:30, Steve, I called Singapore. Went straight to Singapore, went straight to KrisFly Gold in Singapore, which is always quicker, and, tried to get the flight. 3 hours later, I had the flight for us. We actually had the flight.
Is that literally sort of sitting on hold, waiting to kind of get through, getting connected?
Sitting on hold for 2 hours, 20 minutes, I think it was. I know it was over 2 hours because I get 3 minutes on Skype and they ran out, and then the guy had to call me back. Then when he called me back, I'm realizing in the back of my head, thinking, shit, he's called me back on my Australian number. I don't have any roaming plan on my Australian number. How much is this going to cost me? And of course, I got the message after I hung up from Optus, which is the Australian provider, for those that don't know. I got the thing saying your roaming charge is in excess of 100 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So that call cost me about $100. But, we got a flight back. And then we also managed to, then I called back again because I was stupid enough. Yeah, then I called back again. I was stupid enough, so I got us an upgrade to premium economy as well, because we had an economy ticket. Price went up, the fare went up. Not a lot, but it did go up. So it's good. So we got the flight back. We're coming back on the, leaving London on the 18th, leaving for London on Thursday. Hopefully I'll get to catch up with Ajmal and maybe some other guys when I'm there. Nick as well.
Yep.
Then back in Sydney. So I've been planning, as you know, and I'll tell the listeners before we get into the usual, I've been planning the car situation. I mean, among other things, among all the other things we have to deal with, planning the car situation.
Nothing's as important as a car, mate.
Yeah, well, I have to, there's so many things, Steve, you know that. I mean, it's exciting, but there's so many things and there's also things,
concentrate on the car, that's the fun thing.
Repairs on the car, repairs on the flat, repairs on a lot of things,
Yep.
So anyway, I booked the car in. Autohouse has got it booked in. Chris at Autohouse got back to me, so it's booked in for the 23rd. I couldn't book it in almost straight away because I don't have a license in Australia. I can't drive. My license expired 2 years ago. So I have to get my license back. And when I got my license back, then I can take it over. But
can you do that online? I think I've asked you that before.
Nope, you can't. Stupidity because it's expired.
Right, okay.
Because when it wasn't expired, I tried to do it online, and they said, no, you can't do it online. And then COVID kicked in, and then they changed some of the rules, and then you could do it online, but then mine had been expired for more than 6 months. So once it's expired for more than 6 months, you can't do it.
Okay.
I think you have to have an eye test again or something like that. But anyway, that's easier. Service New South Wales, it's open on Saturdays. So we arrive on I think Friday morning or Friday night. Maybe it's Friday night. So then I'll just go down there on the Saturday.
Yeah.
Friday. I'll just go down there and do it. I'll just get it done. You can do it straight away, apparently, so it's no problem.
Yep.
Let me come back to the car, Steve. Let me just talk about owner stories this week. And I know you didn't listen to it because I didn't send it to you, once again, because I'm an idiot. Number 54, it was Xander from Adelaide in Australia. Xander's a great guy. People may know of Xander. Xander is Boys Own Garage. And Xander has a really good story because it connects it's sort of like as a full circle thing in a way, but it connects a lot of other owners who have been on owner stories. And it shows you the community and his kind of his passion, Steve. So he's just bought, and I knew this a few weeks ago. He sent me a message about it, and he bought James at Porsche Platz, RSR Classics. He bought James's ex Fitzgerald Racing 996 Cup car, the yellow one that James had spent quite some time getting, fixing up and putting back the livery from, I'm going to forget this. I think the livery's 04, the 04 livery. So that's what Xander has now. He has that car. I think he's made a right decision. It's a good story, Steve, because it's about, he comes from Adelaide. He was, went to nearly every F1 in Adelaide, or watched nearly every F1 in Adelaide. As a kid, he had that interest in Porsche, but he had that interest in motorsport. You know what I mean? He was watching motorsport on TV, which left an impression on him. When you're a kid, you're watching it. And then what he remembers is Jim Richards and Peter Fitzgerald dueling it out in Porsches.
Yeah.
And then
I remember those days.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's a good story, because it's like, can you imagine, you're watching this on TV, and I think about it too, you're watching it on TV, and then here you are, and you own Peter Fitzgerald's Cup car. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a pretty cool story. And I don't think he intended on getting a Cup car, but he did it, and he's really happy about it. He was looking for Xander.
Does he do lots of track days?
Sorry?
He does lots of track days.
He does karting. He does a lot of karting, so he knows how to. Okay. He knows how to sort of. He knows the lines, and he knows how. He's got that sort of skill set. He's obviously going to do track days. He hasn't worked it out yet, but there's a really good story, because also in Adelaide, if you remember, there's Simon, who was on a previous Owner Stories too. Simon is at Porsche Nut 9 on Instagram. Hi, Simon. And Simon's got his 03 GT3 Cup car. The blue one. I always forget which team it is. Sorry, Simon. 03 GT3 Cup car, and he's got a 996.2 GT3.
Yep.
So they live nearby. So that's 2 Cup cars. And I think there's another friend that also has a Cup car. I can't remember exactly now. I'm a bit vague this morning. But there was another friend. So I think there's 3 of them. But they're going to organise a track day. But I asked Simon how he kind of justified it. And I think he just said, I think it's basically the experience that you get out of it for those 4 times a year that you take it on the track, where you can drive it to its fullest. And then when you've got a GT3, and he was looking for a GT3, and he tried to get this GT3 in 996, and it fell through, Steve. And it fell through, I think, because the owner was umming and ahhing, and then they took off parts and the price went up, and it was a bit of a mess up, I think. So he didn't buy that, and that's why he contacted James at Porsche Platz. Trusted James, hadn't seen the car, Steve, hadn't seen the car at all. James just, James is a trustworthy and straight-up guy, and he knows all about his Porsches, and this was his car that he'd had for the last few months, since I spoke to him, actually, on Owner Stories. And then he decided to go into the Cup car. And, I think it's the experience in those 4 times a year which kind of makes up for the fact that you can't drive it on the road. What do you think about a Cup car? Was that something you would do?
I don't track my car, mate, so you're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, no, but this is a car but this car is only a track car. You don't do anything with it. You can't drive it on the road.
Can't. I would have absolutely no understanding of the need and the want to have a Cup car, because I don't even sort of track my existing car to kind of know whether or not I'd actually really appreciate. I'm sure, if I kind of did it, I'm sure I would enjoy it. I'm not doubting that for a second. Whether I've kind of got enough skill in it to then kind of go, hey, I want to get something even more capable than the thing that I've kind of got. I know part of it is not trashing the thing that you've got as well, but I think you're just in a very kind of specific sort of territory, that's all.
But it's interesting, though, because he spent, there's another connection here, and I'm giving it all away, but I'll just pass on this very quickly. His previous car was the 1966 912 Tangerine. And if you haven't seen that car, people should go to 911 Culture, KUHLTUR.com. Just search Tangerine Dream, and the article comes up. And that's the 912, Steve, that Stephen in Sydney owns. Stephen, our friend in Sydney, who also has a 996. That's the car that's being fixed up in Adelaide. That was Xander's previous car. There was a problem with the engine, if people remember the Owner Stories. That was way back in, if you're looking for that Owner Stories, it was number 38. And also Simon's Owner Story you should listen to as well. That's number 34, if you guys haven't listened to it already. So Xander's got, he had his 912 is the one now Stephen has in Sydney, and his Cup car he's just taken from James at Porsche Platz. So, and also that, his interest in motorsport, I like how it's come full circle, and he was from watching Fitzgerald and Fitzy, I should say, on TV. He's now driven his cup go up his driveway, as he said, Steve. That's as far as he's driven it so far.
Cool.
Let me just get on to, before we come back around, Apple ratings and reviews. I just want to read out these two because people have gone to the effort to write them, I should say. 2 reviews this week. The first one is from Jeremy, actually. Jeremy from episode 42. Jeremy just put another review in there because he said, great podcast. I love Paul's episode this week and can't believe he lives in the same small town as me and we've never met. I didn't realize, Jeremy, that you guys lived in the same area. I didn't pick up on that one. The next one is great Porsche podcast. Porsche-centric podcasts are rare. These guys don't disappoint. Informative but informal. I love the banter between Michael and Steve. Great podcast for those new to the brand. Just picked up my first 911, and this podcast was part of my journey. Keep it up. From Riggs79 in America. Thank you so much for that. And as I always say, leaving a rating or review really does help us get noticed. Number 1 in Bahrain again this week, which is really cool since I'm in Bahrain. I asked John from Norway, John who's been on Notice Stories, who has the Speed Yellow 996 GT3. He answered the question.
You asked him whether you liked your accent.
He answered the question why we're popular in Norway. Because the Americans are too loud. And we're like, the Americans are too loud and over the top, I think was what John said. I'm not quoting you directly, John, but I think it was something in that right. vein. So that's the reason, Steve. And probably because we don't swear. Okay. I don't like swearing so much on podcasts. I think it's just, I find sometimes...
Why fucking not?
I find smoking tired too much sometimes. You know what I hate? I'll tell you what I hate. I'm going to make a little beef here. You know what I hate? I listen to Smoking Tire, right? But this thing with Tesla, his thing with Tesla, his like problem with Tesla and this thing about electric cars is just like, oh my God, stop it already. You know what I mean?
This thing's about Elon Musk, not Tesla. Or electric cars.
Well, Tesla. Because somehow
I think he's relatively clear in sort of saying he doesn't have a problem with EVs. He owns one, and his problem isn't really with Tesla because some of them apparently are all right, but he's got a problem with Elon's propensity to kind of say stuff about their cars that they don't necessarily live up to. I don't know enough about it. So
but don't all car companies do weird marketing stuff like that? I know Elon Musk takes it to the extreme, but I don't know. I
don't know enough about it. But if you listen to it verbatim, I don't think all car companies are quite as overpromising as Tesla are.
I don't know. I think I listened to one the other day and I had to like literally fast forward it for half an hour because all he was talking about how he couldn't find a supercharger wherever he was in some wine district. And I think they dwelled on that for like 35 minutes. It was like, okay, I get the point. Like you don't have to keep talking about it. I don't know. I'm finding it a little bit boring actually at the moment. I'm finding a little bit nothing. I don't know. Even the guests are a bit nothing. They're a bit boring. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just the frame of mind I've been in the last week, Steve.
Two grumpy old men on the balcony, mate.
I don't know. At least he's not racist. That's the main thing. Okay. Let's start with this. Okay, I know everyone's wondering what's going on with my car, and I'm going to get onto that. Should we get onto that now, Steve, or should we go into the question from Instagram? Okay, so my car, the situation is, and I know some people have asked me on Instagram, and I haven't answered the question. It's booked in. It's going to take, I think, at least a week, Steve. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to take a week because of the fact that my steering rack, people remember the old steering rack story, it's come back again, was leaking. No doubt after sitting dormant for 2 years, that steering rack seal has dried up even more, and no doubt it is leaking even more, and no doubt...
So what was it specifically? Was it weeping or was it just dripping?
It was slightly dripping. What happens is the seal on the steering rack is rubber, apparently, and if it's not used, if your car sits dormant for too long, the rubber dries out and it cracks, apparently, from my memory, and it leaks. It will get worse. It will not get better, especially if it's not driven. You can still drive your car. Your car will be very noisy when you're turning. You'll hear a noise. It'll get loud.
And could you hear that when the last time you...
No noise at all. Yep. Maybe it was only very small. It was enough for them to tell me that it had to be changed. It seems a general consensus on the internet as well, and I checked, is that most people don't replace it with the new part. I think the new part's expensive.
It's reconditioned, right?
Yeah, it's just reconditioned, so they take it out. It's sent to someone, I guess, nearby, wherever Waterhouse is. and it comes back. That's why it takes 4 days. It takes around 4 days, he told me.
Yep.
So that's why it's been for 4
Makes
days.
sense.
I booked it in for service. I also asked a question about fuel. I'm a bit confused about the whole fuel thing. I know people say when you put your car in storage, you should put some additive into the fuel tank. I think someone said it's called Techron or something. I think that's the name of it. I didn't add that to the fuel tank. I just made sure the fuel tank was full like I always did. I made sure my wheels
You weren't expecting to be away for 2 years.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I don't know what state my tyres are going to be in. I mean, I pumped them up to the fullest. That's what Grant at Autohouse told me to do as well when I asked them about storing the car.
Yep.
So they were pumped up to 50, which was the max of that tyre, the Pilot Sport 2. I know how much it loses after each 6-month period. So I would say the tyres now are probably down to around 38 PSI. Based
Which
on
isn't a problem. It's fine, isn't it?
what they lose. So that should be okay. And anyway, new tyres. I know people say about flat spots, but new tyres. And I heard Matt Farrow talk about this. I'll give him a compliment on this one. He did say that his mother's car, he drove his mother's Jaguar and had flat spots. And then after you get the heat into the tyres again and drive it for enough miles, the flat spots, work their way out.
Dissipate kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
the flat spot thing is really a thing with older tyres, older technology. New tyres, they kind of, once they get to temperature, they're actually okay.
Yep.
So anyway, Steve, it's booked in. I asked Autohouse about the fuel. Chris at Autohouse gave me a good tip and said probably best not to drive it too far. So I
Chris
think
Long or Chris Monk?
Chris Monk.
Cool.
That's the Chris that's always been there, right? Chris Monk.
There's Chris Long has also joined them.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
So there's
who
two
that is.
Chris's on the front desk. Yep.
Right, that's confusing. And he said probably best not to drive it too far, so I'll just drive it from my place to Autohouse, which is about, I don't know how far is that, Steve, 10 kilometres? I don't even know how far the distance is
about that.
from the city to there. So I'll just drive it there. I won't drive it anywhere else. And like I said, I don't have a license in Australia at the moment anyway, so I've got to get my license renewed. So that will take a
Do you
day.
know why? Just out of curiosity. Does fuel go
I
off?
said, apparently.
Does it separate or?
I don't know. I didn't ask him exactly. Then I did a search online and it said that it could make foul of your engine. It could clog up something. Here's my technical knowledge.
If there's kind of sediment in the bottom of the tank, if that kind of gets through your injectors and
I don't think
all
it's
that
to
sort
do
of
with the
stuff.
bottom of the tank. I think it's best to do that your fuel is 2 years old and you really shouldn't be using fuel that's any more than 6 months old or 3 months old. From what the internet told me when I did searches.
Yeah,
that it could.
I guess it was just the wire. That's cool.
Yeah, it could do issues with it. But he didn't actually tell me the why, but I'm just going to follow it. And then they will flush the tank. They will flush the tank out. So they'll just flush it out.
You could do it yourself. I'm rewatching Breaking Bad with my wife after the kids go to sleep. And there's a scene in it where Walter White puts a plastic pipe into the fuel tank of the RV and then just sucks to kind of, get it to sort of bleed the tank. You could just do that.
Okay, you want to know a funny story? And I didn't mention this on the owner stories when I did it, but that's one of the memories I have of my dad when I was a kid.
Really?
We had the
fuel out of the tank.
blue Toyota Corona, I should say, blue Toyota Corona, and it's plain. This is when I was, I don't know, 7 or something. And Dad used to get the bit of hose. He'd have a piece of hose in the shed. I'm showing Steve how long it is, this bit of hose. He'd stick it down the tank, and he'd need some fuel for the lawnmower.
Yeah.
So he'd go, and then it'd go in his mouth. He'd spit it out. And then put it in the little other Jimmy tin so he can get some fuel for the lawnmower because he couldn't be bothered going to get the fuel. And then he mixed the fuel with oil or whatever for the lawnmower, the 2-stroke or whatever it is.
Suppose it's just alcohol. Oh, there's additives in it though. Yeah,
I don't know. I remember that.
That's good for you.
I used to laugh. I remember laughing about it because it was just like this, he'd always get it in his mouth and it'd always be this like, that face when you got petrol in your mouth. I don't know what that would taste like. I could just do that, right? And just put it down the drain, be very environmentally friendly and stick it down the drain in the city.
Just because, effectively that just sort of means like you get home, I know you've got to get your license and stuff like that, but you've been away from your car for more than 2 years and you're obviously kind of gagging to take it for a drive. I know that you're probably concerned that there might be some potential kind of issues like a weepy kind of steering rack and stuff like that. But it kind of then means like you basically go downstairs, you tentatively drive it to Autohouse, and then it disappears for like a while, and you don't really get to drive it, sort of thing.
That's okay. I mean, I'd rather it be ready, all right to drive, so I can do a long drive in it. You know what I mean? Like get up at the crack of dawn and then drive to Putty Road. You know what I mean? Like get up one morning at 5 o'clock, 4:30, and just drive to Putty Road and back.
Because Marco, my cousin with the 996 Turbo,
Yep.
he and I were kind of laughing about getting blue balls from like lockdown, not being able to go for a proper drive for a couple of months. And then I think Marco literally said, bloody hell, how does Michael feel after kind of not driving for more than 2 years, sort of things? Like,
Yeah, I know.
I guess another couple of weeks isn't going to kill him. But
And then driving the MG here in Bahrain. Did I tell you the MG had a bit of an issue the other day where the windscreen wipers wouldn't stop? Yeah, there's some wiring, I don't know what it was. And then it stopped. Of course, when I took it back to the rental people, which is just like a desk in the shopping center, it's not like a proper company. Well, it's a proper company, but it's very small. They just wouldn't stop. So like they're just doing it, the whole 15 minutes to the rental car company, they're just like doing it. It's like a nightmare. Yeah. And then, of course, I go there. He messes around with the stick and says, oh, it's not doing it anymore. And it's like, okay. And then I drive away and then it does it intermittently. It's like still doing it. It's like, what in the hell? I think it's just got some kind of weird wiring. Like it's got there's something odd with it, but now it's stopped again. So anyway.
Chinese built cars, mate.
But I rented that car for a month as well, and I'm giving it back on Thursday. And unfortunately, after the first week, there's no refund for the rest of the time. So it's like, okay, whatever. Steve.
So was that kind of... so the plan is to have the service done, to have the steering rack reconditioned. Is there anything else? And obviously let Autohouse sort of look at the car. Is there anything else?
I just said in my long-winded email to them, Chris just gave me like a little short response. I just said that I just want them to check everything over that they think might be a problem after a car sitting stored for 2 years, just to check everything for me. I want it thoroughly checked. I'm tempted to get my engine mounts changed because I'm pretty sure they're the originals. I'm just tempted to get them changed because there's a new steering rack, and because if I get the engine mounts changed, and I know after they do the steering rack, they have to do an alignment. You have to also pay for the wheel alignment balance. Yep. So that's $400 or whatever from Autohouse. So like, I just thought maybe I just tell them to do the engine mounts as well and just have it a little bit more sorted.
Mounts don't require a realignment though.
Yeah, I know, but it's just about just getting trying to get the car to normal. I still have the suspension issue with the bump stops being split at the front, or one of them being split. But that process to replace that $30 part is really expensive in labor. And I think I don't want to
wouldn't you do that potentially?
I don't want to go down that track because I'd rather change the suspension if I was going to keep the car for a long period. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do with the car. I know I'm sort of going back on what I said before. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm just kind of see if things play out and somehow I come into some extra funds, then maybe I'll look at something else. I'm just trying to work that out at the moment. I'm still trying to work out what to do, and I haven't really had a clear enough head after all these projects to actually decide, Steve. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's it, doing that. And then I sent an email to Atlas. I don't know Pierre at Atlas personally. He seems like a nice guy. I did notice that I sent him an email last night. We're recording this on a Tuesday. I did notice he's responded to my email last night. I haven't actually read it yet. I haven't had a chance because we're doing this very early in the morning. But he has responded. So I'm trying to tie that up. I'll update it next week. I'm trying to tie that up so like what you said, that when it's in Autohouse, if there's any way of tying up the thing. So I sent them some images of the damage that you took for me, Steve.
I reckon there is.
There is?
Like if you want better pictures and stuff, I can kind of go and take more. But like if the car's going to sit at Autohouse and all that has to happen is the bumper needs to be kind of taken off and then taken to Atlas to have it resprayed. They can take something like the fuel lid the fuel filler lid or something if they're going to need something to match to, just to kind of double check.
Don't they blend in anymore? I mean, I haven't read Pierre's email, so we're in the middle of the podcast, so I'm not going to read it now. But do they blend?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure no.
They don't blend in anymore, where they have to blend it into the body.
No, I think that's an old-fashioned kind of thing. There's no.
They
no
still use
blending,
putty, right?
Because the last thing you want is blending. Like, to be perfectly honest. Well, I guess depends, but yeah.
Well, I watched Harry's Garage where he was doing his Rolls Royce and he got it repainted white, and he said they were doing blending on that, so I thought they still did blending.
I don't know. I think, like, I'm no expert, but I'd kind of go, the bumper's plastic, you know, the corresponding, like the front wings and everything are metal, blah, blah, blah. Like, yes, there's a chance that because of the substrate being different that they might not kind of match perfectly, but I don't think you would be kind of wanting like feathered kind of blending across your front wings to kind of match your front
like
bumper.
Flames,
I'm pretty sure that
blending.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you don't want anything like that.
But it's exciting.
So therefore,
yeah.
So therefore, I think like if you wanted to kind of keep your car off the road for as short a time as possible, so you can get out and enjoy it. Like try to organise. Like I'm sure Autohouse and Atlas are good buddies, so I'm pretty sure that they can sort of work amongst themselves and figure it out.
I'm hoping by that weekend that the car's going to be sorted enough for me to get out and drive it. You know, if I have to take it back to Autohouse to get other things done, I'll just take it back. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm trying to work out, like, if it's sitting there for 4 days and the car's just sitting there and the service takes them a day and then they've got nothing else to do, I thought, well, why not get the engine mounts changed while it's sitting there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I thought about that. And I don't think it's super expensive. So I thought, I'm trying to think of things that while it's there, I may as well just get a couple of other things done just to save the time, so I don't have to take it back after Christmas and get other things done. You know what I mean? Just
what about like all the extra bits, like you had sort of interior trim pieces and stuff? Does any of that need to be fitted by them? Or?
No, I did that myself, I think. I don't need them to do it. I can just do it myself.
Did you get door sills? Are you going to do that yourself?
Yeah. Why? What door sills?
Yeah,
the leather door sills?
The inside door sills. No. The scuff plates, the stainless things.
I haven't bought them yet.
Okay.
I'm thinking about buying them in London and taking them back. I haven't bought them yet. I'm still on the fence a little bit about the silver on silver. I think I will get them, but I'd have to buy them in. I still think it works out a lot cheaper for me to buy them in London and bring them back to Sydney. Got a lot of things to come back from London, so I'm a bit worried about the weight side of it. So I'm trying to work out that.
If you get those stainless ones, you really should get the, I think Marco's ordered one, the stainless Latheworks knob and rod.
Yeah, he has ordered it, actually. He told me. He's ordered a second knob as well.
I think he's getting the, what's it called? The bead blasted finish. I reckon that's going to look pretty good.
Yeah, I did like those stainless steel ones. I don't know which one it was, but I remember seeing them from Latheworks, which is who we're getting our knobs from. I do actually, I sent the images too that you gave me last week to Nick. I think he's ordering one for sure after seeing that, because it looks pretty cool in the image.
Yep.
I was watching an video last night on YouTube, a smoking tire one on that Mustang Mach 1, and I noticed that the gear knob in that is white. It looks like a Latheworks type one. It's like a white knob with black writing. It's very similar style to the Latheworks. I didn't realize. It must be like an American sort of thing, is it?
No, I think a lot of old school cars, like, I'm pretty sure that like a lot of the Singers have, like, if they don't have this sort of layered, wooden kind of knob that harks back to 917s and stuff like that, I think they've got an option for like just the very simple black kind of plastic knob, which is just like a retro thing, which is kind of why I always wanted one.
Yeah, I still wouldn't mind getting one of the wood ones like you've got. Maybe you'll sell one of yours because you've got so many of them, but one of the ones from ones from Carbone, you've got like a whole set now on display on your shelf, right? You've got like 4 of them or something.
I took the car up for the first time today. And,
did you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so like, like last week I was talking about the fact that I'd done the ceramic coating, so I was also waiting for it to cure properly. Plus it was raining all last week in Sydney, so it's only just kind of stopped raining. And it's about to start raining again. So I went for a really quick drive to visit John at Pro Stitch, who has moved workshops.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get to kind of drive the car properly because I realized I hadn't been driving for so long. I was sort of just a bit kind of tentative and all of that sort of stuff. Plus work got really busy. I thought today was going to be quiet and it's actually stupid busy. So I was a bit preoccupied. Went to visit John, had a little chat, had a look around his showroom, all that sort of stuff, saw some nice cars, and then turned around to kind of come home and thought, okay, cool. Like, so it's a good half an hour drive, like, enjoy it, sort of take it for a good sort of fang. And then I realized that the gear shifter was really loose because I hadn't tightened up the screws on the LatheWorks thing properly.
Right.
So I'd had to drive like grandma on the way home because I was worried the whole thing was just going to come off.
Oh, great.
And there's 4 kind of grub screws in it and I hadn't tightened them down properly, and then they obviously worked their way even more loose as I was kind of driving along.
Because you put it on just to see how it looks before, because you thought you might want to change it, so you didn't put it on tight. That was what you did, right?
But it looks good. Aesthetically,
it looks really
good.
No, it looks really good.
Yeah.
The black rod, the black shaft, or whatever you call it. Let's call it shaft for this episode. Looks really good.
Yeah, happy.
At least you got to go for a drive. Has Marco been for a drive? Have you spoken to him? Are you planning a drive on the weekend?
We would talk. He suggested it for last weekend, but neither of us could kind of do it. I don't know. Like, ideally, it'd be nice. I think it'd be probably better to go out on a weekday. Like, I think, like a Friday mid-morning would probably be better if we could both get away from work. But
Yep.
I'm not sure if I can, and I have no idea if he can as well. Marco runs his own business, so he possibly has more flexibility than, working a corporate office job type thing. But I don't know. I'd love to kind of get out and do something. But
Yeah, I want to do the putty. I want to do the putty road on a weekday. Maybe we should do that. Maybe if Marco and you are
we'll
like
organise
free, we'll do it on a weekday morning, like early, and just get out there, get out of the.
That's a day trip. Like that's a day adventure. Like go up there, kind of book a nice restaurant up in the Hunter somewhere again, and
I don't need to eat. Just
relax.
drive. Don't need to eat.
No, do it. I reckon the other one might be Mudgee. Marco and I were talking about it.
Honey, get some honey at Mudgee.
Just for a drive, mate.
That's what people do when they go to Mudgee. They always bring back, I brought you back some honey from Mudgee. Okay, thanks.
There's some pretty good restaurants in Mudgee. I've
Really?
been there a couple of times. Yeah.
I don't know. Mudgee I kind of laugh at because living in Blaney when I was a kid, it's kind of like Mudgee was one of these places, the signs you used to see, the road to Mudgee, and it was kind of always used to laugh at the name. And we had relatives there, actually. We went there when I was a kid. Off and on, we had some cousin or something that lived there, I think, from memory.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, let's move along because I want to talk about being a Porsche Wheelman, and you laughed at me when I said that before. And this is going to be the title of this episode: Porsche Wheelman, not a getaway driver.
Because you're planning on robbing a bank.
Just a driver, just a Porsche driver. Being a Porsche driver and experiencing robbing a bank and experiencing robbing a bank to pay for that 912 and GT3. I tell you what, though, the more people I talk with who have got 356s, I had a really good chat yesterday for a future owner stories, and I mentioned to you with Jeff from Sydney. Hi, Jeff. And Jeff has had, I'm going to drop it in here because it's coming up. Jeff's had 19 Porsches. He has 3 really cool ones at the moment, and one of them is a 356. I'm not going to tell you which model, but it's the pinnacle.
I think John from Pro Stitch has got one too, and I think that's the one that he said that he'll never let go of. Yeah.
What model has he got? What year? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
And I tell you what, I've never been a fan of the 356. I appreciate them, but I've never been a fan thinking I want one, and now I look at them. I really do look at them. They're just, I don't know, there's something appealing about them. There really is. I don't know what it is, mate. Anyway, where are we? Porsche Wheelman, I want to get into that. I just want to have a quick chat. I want to ask you a couple of questions about that, about how we get in our Porsche direction, how is it possible to experience every part of the brand, and have we experienced enough? I know I haven't. But those 3D printed Porsche seats who sent me that link? Paul sent me that link. Paul from last week's Owner Stories. Paul in the UK. What do you think about those? I couldn't understand. That price seemed very cheap to me. And I know it's expensive, but it seemed very cheap.
Porsche seats are cheap, but yeah, they're still like, what, €2,800 or something?
Yeah, and they call it innovative 3D printed body form full bucket seat, and you can actually spec them. You can spec them for your current car. I think it's 981s, 911s, not 996s or 997s. And
991 and upwards. Yeah.
Yeah, 991 and upwards. They're exclusive manufacture, and they're going to be a standard feature in the car configurator. I think they look pretty cool. I don't even mind the color accents. I mean, the black on black, but even with the bit of red and the bit of yellow, they're kind of cool when you see it with your red seatbelt. They just have the little bit on the backrest and on the seat, a bit of red detail, yellow detail, or black detail, Steve. The yellow, I thought,
that's one of the bits that's 3D printed, I think.
Is it?
When you look at it up close, that's sort of like a mesh kind of polymer type thing.
So they're the 3D printed body form full bucket seats in the Mission R. I think that's what they're saying. This is where it's come from. This direction has come from, the Mission R. But they're available for the Boxster and the Cayman. They're available. It's interesting for the 718 Boxster Cayman 982. It's only the driver's seat that's available.
Yeah.
And then the 911,
that was weird.
Yeah, and the 911 992, it's only got the driver's seat as well.
Oh,
which
the
I thought,
driver's side, yeah.
Yeah, which is really, really weird. But the price, I thought the price was crazy. I thought it was cheap. Someone told me it was expensive. Maybe I'm just out of touch. 2,677 euros per seat. I thought those sort of, and then I thought, are they only offering? Is it just the insert? Is it just the insert they're selling? But it's a whole seat, right?
Seat.
But I thought those seats were
seat.
20. I thought those seats were like 30 grand Aussie for those seats.
No. Like the buckets in my car, which are discontinued and stuff like that. They've kind of hit about 30,000 US, I think. 20 mid 20s and up, but I think that's because they've been discontinued. But like if you kind of went to try to source like the lightweight buckets out of a 991 GT3 or a 992, I don't think they'd be kind of 20 something, but I think they'd be more expensive than 2,700 euro each.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Seems very cheap.
So I thought they were cheap.
Yeah.
But actually, now that you know how like we were kind of laughing because when you read the little list that it sort of says some of them are only available for the driver's side.
Yeah.
I thought they were interchangeable. Like the buckets on my car, you can swap them from left to right. Like you just have to change the seat belt receptacle to kind of bolt to the other side. So I thought like buckets weren't side specific actually.
Well, I'm looking at the table now, and it's interesting, this one, actually, because it's available for the 718, Boxster Cayman, and 982 produced up to and including week 47, 2020, right? Yep. But that's just for the driver's seat. That's driver's seat and passenger seat. But then from week 48, 2020, for the 718 and Boxster Cayman 982 produced from week 48, 2020, it's only the driver's seat. But the 992 surprised me that you go on your online configurator, you can just have one of the seats. Seems a bit odd.
It's funny because I know like a lot of
I think I know what it is. I think I know what it is.
Track rats. A lot of people that are into their kind of track cars, like it's not that uncommon for track guys to, sort of have like a racing bucket in the driver's seat and then just have the normal seat on the other side. And that's kind of like the look. But I kind of would have thought that most Porsche owners these days aren't track guys and they kind of aesthetically would want matching seats in their car.
Yeah, I think the main thing, exactly. I think the main thing with this seat though, Steve, is that it says it's got passive ventilation, right? Mm-hmm. So the seat is supposed to be cooler. It's also apparently 8% lighter. I don't know what that means in figures, how much that actually is.
That's like a Big Mac, yep.
Yeah, 8%. And then it says part of its innovation is that cushion and backrest surfaces are produced using a 3D printer and are available in 3 different rigidity grades, meaning the seat can be customized to suit the customer's specific needs. When I first saw this article, I thought it was, Porsche send you some plaster of Paris or something, you sit your ass in it and you send it back to them and they give you a proper custom seat like a race car, like a race car. Like an F1. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
here's your Porsche plaster of Paris, is that what you call it? Yeah, and here's my buttocks and then make me a seat. I thought it was something like that, you go to a Porsche dealer and you just sit into a sloppy plaster thing and there it goes. But it's not.
No. If you look at the pictures, it's the coloured bit, I think, is particularly the bit that is customisable. It's not just the colour, but there's 3 grades of hardness and all that type of stuff.
I'm just looking at the pictures now. We'll go off this very quickly. I'm looking at the pictures now. The seat in general, the sides of the seat look pretty much like a standard seat. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is the difference only the inside? So if you had a 992 and you had two seats, really you don't really notice that much of a difference if you had two lightweight buckets, except for the insert on the driver's side. Is that what it is? Or is the whole seat slightly different? The leather lumbars on the side of the seat are slightly different shape. This is what I can't work out from the
the outer edges look very much like the lightweight bucket, but I think the difference is a little bit more on the inside part of it. Like, I suspect that if you've already got lightweight bucket spec'd in your 991 or your 992, you're not going to get these seats. But if you don't have that option, then this is a pretty cool upgrade.
If I had a Cayman or a whatever, or a 991, I think I'd be tempted. I would be. If it's only 3,000
€3,000. Such a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's and it comes direct from Porsche. You can spec it properly. You know, it's really cool. And I think, with
after
the
you
yellow
rob your bank, you could buy like multiple sets of it.
Yeah, I have to get a proper card.
Color in each color.
Can't put it in the 997.
Color in each color and the different hardnesses.
Yeah, that'd be nice. You just have a set, just switch it out like wheels every weekend.
Yeah.
I want a soft seat this weekend. I want a harder, firm seat next weekend. It all changes. Hey, so that's it, 3D printed Porsche seats. I thought it was quite interesting. I mean, Porsche's doing a lot of innovative things with this exclusive manufacture now, aren't they? So that thing that we talked about a long time ago with Manti Racing as well, the Manti Racing kit that goes on your GT3 RS or whatever, GT3 and GT3 RS, wasn't it? That you sent me something recently about it as well, something else that they were doing. So that's all that stuff is very cool, I think. I mean, the customization, obviously they want more of your money. That's what it's all about. But, it's exciting when you love the brand and you want to add things to your car and you have the money to spend. Speaking about having money to spend, Steve, and I literally thought about this topic, and it's not really a topic, it's just something that's always was in my head from yesterday after speaking from Jeff from Sydney, who's coming up on a few weeks' time, because he has owned 19 Porsches. And I'm thinking, shit, I drive a 911, I drive a 997. Well, I drove it 2 years ago. Hopefully I remember how to drive stick as well, because I've been driving automatic for the last 2 years. I thought about that the other day. I thought, hang on, which foot do I use again? But it all came back to me. I thought about it. But after driving autos, it's going to be a great experience in getting back into a 6-speed manual. But I was thinking, shit, I haven't, I just keeps coming into my head where I'm just too dormant. I'm too slow. That I haven't really experienced enough of the brand. I haven't experienced enough of these cars. And Jeff is very nice. Jeff, I know he's listening too, and he's a very kind guy. He's a very nice guy. And he said, when I'm back in Sydney, feel free to drive his 912. You know what I mean? Which is a really nice thing to offer. And I know other people in Sydney have also offered the same thing, to get that experience. And it's great to drive someone else's car, like to drive your car, but it also depresses you a little bit afterwards, because it's like you realize that you are missing out a little bit on a better experience. You know what I mean?
Funny, yeah. You want to be careful about, you want to be kind of careful about driving lots of other people's cars to a degree. Not in terms of stacking it and values and all that kind of stuff, but it is a surefire way to kind of grow discontent with what you've kind of got and what you can, what's within your own kind of reach to a degree. Very fun experience kind of thing, but it's like me sort of saying last week that I've never driven a 99 1.2 GT3. I'd really kind of like to a degree, but then I'm also a bit scared of kind of going, oh, that shit's all over my car. I actually kind of really want one of those, but I can't actually get to one.
Just do a shout out. Anyone in Sydney that has a 991 GT3 that will let Steve drive it. Steve.
This is exactly my point.
I don't know. You're going to drive Marco's car, right? You haven't driven Marco's 996 Turbo either.
Marco's car. No.
You should drive Marco's car. Marco, why haven't you let Steve drive your car? It's very, very strange.
Marco might not want me to drive his car.
Because of the way you change gears. How you ride the clutch and everything, all those things.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Sorry, keep going.
Okay, so this is after, owner stories are a great thing, but they're also a bad thing for me, because I get introduced to these stories and I talk to people before and after the podcast, and and I think, like I said, speaking to Jeff and speaking to a lot of other people, I haven't experienced enough. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You know, I'm a Porsche driver, but am I really a Porsche driver? Because I've only owned one 911. You know, one Porsche. Even, you know, Ajmal, a Flat Cat driver, he's got 3 Porsches now. If anyone's watched his latest video, he's got a Boxster as well. People.
Watch the Boxster video. Hi, Ajmal. How's that one going?
He bought a Boxster. I think he says the price in the video, right? He does, yeah. He bought a Boxster for just over £2,000 or something. So it's pretty. Sorry, Ajmal. It's pretty scabby. But you know, you're still experiencing. You know, he's 996, 912. Now he's got a Boxster. You're still experiencing thing. You know, and I kind of come back to this thing about what determines our Porsche direction. You know, we all get into the brand for different reasons. We either get into it early in life, later in life, as we always say, Steve. But what determines our path with Porsche? You know, some people will only buy newer generations, or they'll only buy a new Porsche. They'll buy the new one when it comes out, and they'll just keep switching to the new one. They won't really go back in time. Other people, like Jeff, you know, for example, and I'll bring Jeff up again because I just spoke to him yesterday, has only owned, you know, classic Porsches. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I guess at the time they weren't super classic. Some of them were 10 years old, but he's only older Porsches. You, for example, haven't owned anything, you know, out of the 90s, really, have you? You haven't really gone back into the 80s, into the 70s. Is there a reason?
My uncle's 80s.
You've driven it, but is there a reason why you haven't bought a 911, like a 70s or a 60s 911?
I don't know, because I don't. I was about to say, when you sort of suggested kind of talking about this topic, I think you still are talking to a slightly rarefied group of people that have the ability to kind of buy multiple kind of Porsches. Because, okay, so like talk about me, like I know I'm very fortunate, and I did kind of get in relatively early in terms of whatever I was, sort of late 20s when I kind of got my first 964. But I never thought, and I still don't think I would have necessarily the ability to kind of own multiple 911s.
Yeah, but when you
which then dictates that you kind of only have like the one to kind of get into, and, you know, like I can't sort of collect, you know, like one from a couple of different sort of generations. Like I'd love to kind of have an air-cooled one to kind of go with GT3, but it ain't going to happen.
But when you bought, Steve, your 964,
yes,
and I can't remember the answer to this, when you bought the 964, was there a part of you, and you said your uncle owned the 80s SC or the 80 G50, right? 88 G50 or something, wasn't it? What did your uncle own?
Yep.
G50.
Yeah, 86, I think it was.
86 G50. So when you bought your 964, were you tempted?
Yep.
Were you thinking at that point, maybe I could get an 80s Carrera? And did your uncle have his one at the time, and did you drive it and think, no, I don't really want that, I want a 90s one?
I only had one option. I literally only had like the option of kind of getting, well, for sure I could have bought something older, but if you remember at the time, that was my daily driver. So I did kind of drive to work, to work and back, sorry. So on my uncle's kind of recommendation, he just sort of said, no, like you're going to need to get something with power steering, and the clutch has to kind of be manageable for kind of peak hour. So you really kind of need a 964 and upwards, basically. And that meant that the 964 is the only thing I could kind of, I could only just scrape the money together to kind of get that car. So I didn't have choices. Like,
right.
You know, that was kind of it.
So so our direction is based upon, and we've talked about this before, you know, to become a real Porsche driver, to have all these experiences, it really still is, it is funds and it is priorities, isn't it? It's all about funds and it's about priorities, and they normally work hand in hand in most cases for all of us. My situation is I keep thinking, the 997 GT3 is just like got too expensive. You know, $300K for a 997 GT3 is just insane. It's way too much, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that as much as I like the 997 GT3, I'd probably tend to look more at a 991.2 GT3.
Yep. But if I was getting for more money.
Yeah, if I was getting a GT3, but more money, right?
Yes,
but not a lot more money when yours is now sitting at they're coming up at 300 now. 300, 310. Whether or not people get that price, we don't know. Not about values, though. It's about experience, right? So, if I want to experience a GT3, maybe I'd look at a 991. But then the 991, you'd want the manual. The manual's going to be a higher price. You could get the PDK probably a little bit cheaper, maybe 20 grand cheaper, max. But you're still looking at around $350, 350,000 Australian. The other alternative is that my 997 is a great car. I keep it, I tweak it a bit more, it's maintained well. There's no issues with it, touch wood. There's no issues, major issues with it. And then, for my experience, and I keep coming back to this classic air-cooled thing, for my experience, to get a 912, a really good one just came up and Bring a Trailer this morning, I saw an email for. To get a 912 is going to cost me about 120,000 Australian landed, if I get one from the US in good condition. I know people have bought them for a lot cheaper. It's 120. So that 120, I'd have to add a hell of a lot more than 120,000 to my car to get into that GT3. But for that lower price, I am experiencing two different cars, and I could experience those cars at the same time and probably still be better off than getting the GT3 first. If I keep those two cars for another 3 years, they're not going to go down in value. So then maybe I have the opportunity in a few years to sell those two cars and then buy a GT3 after that. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole property thing, trading up. I mean, it depends on how prices of GT3 goes, GT3 991s, when the 992 comes out, how it's going to all balance out. But I just keep...
I know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I kind of... So, and I've kind of put this to you before because I'm obviously, I still personally think if I was to speak on your behalf, I reckon the right thing for you to do is to taste a higher level of performance in 911 before you go back to kind of then sort of dabbling in the classics. I reckon that's sort of, to me, possibly a, more logical kind of path.
But you're a very performance orientated kind of driver, right? You've always liked high performing cars, S3s, WRXs, VR6s.
But I don't think you're...
You know what I mean?
Yes, in terms of that's the kind of car that I've liked, but then I'm not a track driver, I'm not, not to that kind of level. So yes, I like the kind of extra performance, but I'm still kind of driving on the road.
Yeah. I
would have thought in terms of your experience and where you kind of go with it, that you might sort of naturally kind of do the same thing. I think we all kind of naturally do this, hence, you kind of potentially start in Golf GTIs, you play in M3s and stuff like that. You kind of keep going.
Yeah.
And then once you kind of hit a certain point where you kind of had a taste for that on the street, I'm not talking about sort of track driving or whatever else, then, and let me kind of try to explain this a little bit better too. So it's not because I'm sort of all and out kind of chasing the best sort of 0 to 100 time or kind of trying to fang around the corner, quicker than everybody else. It's still you think about the way I kind of use the car. If I go out on a weekday and kind of drive it, I'm still only kind of doing 80 kilometers an hour kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because the car is more raw and engaging, and yes, it's more powerful, there's more noise and all of that sort of stuff. That's the bit that I'm kind of getting out of a GT3 as opposed to driving your car on my old 993 or something like that.
Yeah.
So yes, it's performance oriented, but it's probably more that it's kind of a bit more, whatever the word is, visceral. Yeah. So that's why I would have thought potentially for you that you might go down that path, get a taste for that, and then kind of go, oh yeah, okay, cool. That's sort of don't mean to sound snobby or whatever, but that is a step up from where you are at the moment, and then you kind of expand your horizons, and then you kind of go, oh, okay, so then this is what an old air-cooled is like, or a, more like a 356 type experience, or 912 or whatever it is, or even back to kind of a 70s thing, which is kind of if I did have the funds, that's probably what I kind of would do. I would not, add a 991 or a 992 to my car. I would definitely kind of go back to something definitely kind of more classic.
So, yeah, and I asked you before we started recording, I said, do you feel that you've experienced enough of the brand? I mean,
No,
I know
no.
I haven't, and I experience it through
No, I
other
haven't.
people, and I experience it through your stories and people we talk to on the podcast. But you haven't, right? I don't think
No,
anyone
not even
can.
close. Not even
But
close.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone can really say they have. I guess if you had
Well,
20 Porsches or you've had 30 Porsches or maybe you can say yes.
yeah.
But we're
The
still
dude that you
looking.
spoke to yesterday for the upcoming owner story, sorry, I've forgotten his name already.
Jeff said he still looks. He's still looking. Everyone's still looking. You know what I mean? Like he's keen on your car. He's keen to take over your car if you want to sell it.
It's sort of like like my uncle would be that type of person too, where he's sort of like an older kind of guy that's put his kids through school, all of that sort of stuff. So he has the ability to kind of collect and drive multiple cars. Like he can kind of go and swap cars every year now, like if he kind of wants, like for the sake of kind of experiencing it all. But like somebody more in my position, where like my family's still young and I don't have tons of kind of disposable kind of cash, it's just not really an option to kind of, well, for sure I'd love to, but I just don't think it's kind of realistic to kind of get to that spot. Now in your shoes, like where you possibly do have like the ability to kind of, you're obviously kind of deliberating it in terms of the next sort of step. Yeah, look, like what you sort of said does make sense in terms of if you added a 912 to the 997, you're going to have like a multi kind of dimensional sort of thing where you kind of get two different sort of worlds.
Well, it's light, it's nimble, it's it's not that powerful, but the smell, the sound, from people, and I know you get that from the GT3 on a different level. But when I talk to the more and more people who own classics, Porsche classics, you get that on the classic level as well because of the fact that there is no ABS, there is no power steering, there is still the sound, there is and I know
I think that's different. I think you can delineate between those two things because having, I know that they weren't classics when I had my 964 and my 993, but I kind of know a little bit about, I think I know like what people are kind of talking about, like with regards to that sort of general experience. And, like I jumped in my uncle's 200 TIIs a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it. Like, I love those cars and I'd love to kind of have an old classic Porsche or Beamer or something like that as well. But I don't think the experience is the same. Like, I don't think you could kind of go a 997 GT3 versus sort of like a more raw kind of classic. I think there's quite a vast difference between the two sorts of things. And even like in your shoes again, like if you're kind of pondering the upgrade, like if funds allow you to kind of go and have some fun and do something, I don't even think necessarily the decision between a 997 GT3 and a 991 GT3 is that clear cut. I reckon they're both GT3s for sure, but I reckon they're going to be very different experiences and that you would need to drive both. Because I think my guess is that you'd kind of go, yeah, cool, the 991 is like, looks great, it's so much more comfortable, all of that sort of stuff. But the 997 will be kind of far more raw. And this whole sort of conversation about raw, right, to me is sort of like, well, it just means that, like me going on a half-hour drive out to kind of Caringbah today, if I did that in a 991.2, I think that I might think it's a tiny bit boring.
Yeah.
Because I can't get it up to speed enough or I can't find a windy bit or whatever. So it will feel a little bit more like like a modern day Beamer kind of thing, or, a bit more like my 1M.
Yeah.
Whereas you jump in the 997 and it's kind of just got that balance between, like, it's definitely fast enough, but it's still kind of got some other attributes. And of course you could kind of go, well, that 30-minute drive to Caringbah today could have been in like a 70s SC or like a 911S from the 60s kind of thing or something like that. That would be completely different again. But I suspect that would potentially be, I think maybe me personally, I would miss part of the power and the speed aspect of that, which is maybe what you're kind of getting to.
I guess I guess what it is though, it's about, I keep saying, are we really experiencing enough of the brand? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Have we driven
No.
enough cars? I mean, you've driven 993s, 964s, 997. You've driven Porsches that your uncles owned.
Yeah, Boxsters and
Boxsters and stuff. I mean, I've been in a Boxster, I haven't driven a Boxster, but it's like, people always say, it's just try and drive as many Porsches as you can. Try to even test drive as many cars as you can so you know what you like. But it's about about experiencing every Porsche, Steve. And I mean, and I think I come back into this, Porsche driver, not getaway driver, Porsche driver thing. And it's about, having driven everything from a 60s to a 70s to a 356 to a 911T to a 912, SCs, going through all the range. And when you've driven those cars, does that give you a better feeling on the current cars you own, like the way to drive it, the way to control it, the way to get the best out of it, because you have all those memories in your head of driving these cars with no ABS, and you might not have these cars at the same time, but it kind of all adds to your experience. You know what I mean? So that's one side of it, where you're missing out on not the skill, but you're missing out on the experience. You're missing out on these experiences which add to your current day experience because you've had all those experiences in all other Porsches, right? And then it's the fact that, like missing out, you know what I mean? Like at the point in time, prices are high. We all know classic car prices and Porsche prices are high, but they're always going up. They're always going up. You know what I mean? Let's go back to the mistakes I've made, finding those, when 996 GT3s were 99,000, 95,000, you know what I mean? And they were readily available. And I forget what that year was. It's probably 10 years ago now. It's probably like that. It's probably 2012, I think, from memory. I could probably chase the old email where I was sending you links of those cars. But it's probably 10 years ago. And, I missed out on some great cars, even like Marco's car, the turbos at 30,000 kilometer black turbo that was sitting there for months and months at 85,000 in North Sydney. And it just sat there. And there was two, one with high kilometers, and no one wanted them. And obviously they're more than that now. And you have these regrets. And I think, yes, it's annoying that it is priorities and it's funds, right?
Yes.
But you sort of look back on it, and maybe this is wisdom, I don't know, and you look back on it now and you think, well, they're always going to go up, And I remember when I first saw the 912, and I kind of never thought about the 912, is because for the price ratio, the price to experience and the fun and whatever, it was still a hell of a lot cheaper for a 68 912 than it was a 68 911. But it's a similar experience because the shape is there. Sure, there's not the power, but the feeling is still there. And I don't know whether you're going to...
Yeah, I don't know.
The longer you wait...
That's the sort of thing.
I don't know. Is that going to go away? Is that disappearing because everything's becoming so out of reach,
Yeah, well, definitely everything's kind of getting out of reach. Like, I have reservations about 912s, but it doesn't come from experience again. Like my classic thing was sort of saying, I wouldn't have a clue because I've never driven one. That could be the best car in the world, but I just wouldn't know. I'm kind of just making it up on the spot, but I kind of go, like if a 912 was 50 grand, it's like, yeah, for sure. But like at 120, that's a shitload of money in my books. And I kind of go, like for the equivalent 120 grand, like let's just say that kind of getting a really good sort of Beetle, I know it's never going to be as good as a 912, but, like if you could kind of go and spend, like I have no idea what Beetles are worth, but pretend it was like 40. You could get a really, really good Beetle, for 40 grand.
Yeah.
And that was the type of experience that you're sort of talking about. Like to some degree, would that not be sort of like a better way to kind of get that experience rather than having to fork out the full sort of 120 for like the kind of, sort of classic Porsche thing? Like, and I know, I'm sure everybody's sort of sitting there kind of going, yeah, I'd love a 356 as well, but none of us have like, more than $500,000. So unfortunately the horse is bolted, like long gone on some stuff. And I know it's going to continue to do so, which is partly why you're pondering what you're pondering.
No, I'm not kind of wanting to talk about prices so much though. It's about what, I keep coming back to this, what determines your Porsche direction, what determines it. And, I guess unfortunately it is money. It is money. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
not a lot of people now, no one really starts off on a 356 or starts off on a 912 or starts off on a 911T or a 911S.
no,
They start
no,
off on
I
most
don't think
people
so.
start off on a 996 or 997. You know what I
They'd
mean?
start on something slightly more modern and
or a
then
964 or
probably would
993.
spike their interest.
Yeah. That's where
I
everyone
think so.
starts. Pre
And,
964,
you
a lot
know,
of people don't start there. Maybe they get
I kind of
there, but they
asked you
don't start
this.
there.
I think I asked you this a few kind of episodes ago, which is like, you know, I feel like maybe 10 or more years ago, there was like a lot more of a divide. Like you were kind of either an air-cooled guy or you're a water-cooled guy. And I wouldn't be surprised these days if like there is no sort of real divide. I think there's an appreciation from both sides to kind of like the other, and there's recognition that they're kind of different. And I think that if everybody were kind of super rich or Porsches are so much cheaper, then we'd all be kind of dabbling in both sides, because I think we have an appreciation for like the mark and the brand and what the kind of whole experience is. And there's nuance between like all of them. But unfortunately, I do think that very few of us are in the position to be able to kind of go, yeah, I'll have, you know, like one from the 60s, one from the 80s, one from the 90s.
It's not about having
like
them all at the same time, though. It's about having them over a period of
No.
time and enjoying them. You know, it's very rare that you can have 3 really cool Porsches or 10 really cool Porsches unless you've, you know, unless you've bought them earlier on and you've saved them and now you're restoring them, and that's how you've come across it. You know what I mean? It seems like,
sure,
you know...
but look at you now, like, you know, even that thing...
Go ahead.
Sorry, even that thing where you kind of... it makes kind of perfectly logical sense to me, where you kind of go, oh, okay, well, if I were to make these purchases now and make an assumption that it's a fairly safe investment and it probably would kind of go up, then does that kind of get me to the next thing? I know you don't know how much the next thing is going to be. Like, you know, like use your example of going, well, if I've got a 997 and a 912 and both of them at least make a little bit of money or hold kind of value, will that kind of get me safely to a GT3 kind of later on? I don't know. You just don't know how expensive like anything's going to be like in, you know, the 3-5 years that you're sort of talking about. So
I thought when you purchased your GT3 that it was a lot of money, like it was a shitload of money, right? And that's only in 2013, right? 2013?
No, yeah, about that. Yep.
2013. And I thought, man, Steve's paying that much money on a car. Like I was just like, fuck, that's so much money. Excuse me, so much money. I think, man, that was a bargain. So cheap. You know? And there was multiple ones for sale. It's like hindsight, the benefit of hindsight. But anyway, here's a question for you, Steve, before we leave, because I know you got to do work today. You got to make the moolah. I won't say the other one. Is your 997 GT3 is this your last Porsche? Do you think you're going to get into something else, like when the girls grow up? What do you think? You think it's over, or you think it's still going?
So, if my wife is listening to this, which I know she isn't,
well, you have 2 Porsches actually. You have 2. I shouldn't say you have 1.
So yeah, like it's the last one. I'm very content and perfectly happy with it. I love that car to bits. Every time I drive it, you know, like I don't really kind of hanker for anything else. You know, like if I won the lotto tomorrow, I'd obviously love to kind of have something like a 911R or something like that, something even kind of more special, or some sort of RS type thing. Although I'd still think maybe I'd prefer a manual car, and like modern day RSs are only PDKs.
That's interesting, though. Like, so you're going up the ladder still. So you're not, even then you're saying you'll win the lotto, I'll go to a 911R. You're not going down. You see, you're not looking back. You're looking up.
Oh, no. Well, I was about to say, like, if I looked backwards, then I wouldn't ditch the 997. I would add to it, because I don't think if I kind of just had something like a 911S or T or, you know, something like that, if I could like go pie in the sky, pretend I had a 73 RS.
Yeah.
I suspect that I would still, I'm sure I would love that to kind of absolute bits, but I'm pretty sure now that I've kind of made a progression from a 964 to a 993 to a 997, that there is a degree of performance, or whatever you want to call it, in a slightly more modern one, that I don't think that you can kind of get that experience out of like an older one.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
yes, I do still have that kind of craving for that kind of thing. So I don't think I could let go of that.
Yeah, I think, 911R, a GT3 Touring, even the 991.2 GT3 Touring, or the new one, either one I'd be very happy with. If I was going to spec out a new car now, I wouldn't buy the Wing GT3, I'd buy the Touring. And
Yeah,
I'd get it in
yeah,
GT,
yeah, but-
and I get it in GT Silver. I get it in classic GT Silver because I think it looks fantastic in silver. That new shape, it just seems to work, and that
But
would
see,
be my choice.
the one caveat on that, like I sort of said before, is that never having driven one, like there could be this thing where you jump in it and you kind of love it to bits, but same thing, you realize that you have to rev the nuts out of it and you've got to drive it really hard to kind of get, some of the kind of, the fun factor out of it. And it might actually be too good. It might just be kind of too
Good. Yeah.
just way too good and too capable to kind of get some of the cheap thrills and some of the raw stuff out of.
Yeah, and you know what? We're running out of time, but the other good point that was kind of touched on when I was speaking to Jeff is that, and the 911R and a 911 GT2 RS or something like that, you get to the point where you spent, or a Speedster even, and a Speedster for people overseas, Speedster's 700,000 in Australia still. You know what I mean?
Right.
GT2 RS is still in the 700s, I think. They're not anything lower than that. You get a car like that, or you get your classic, 911S that's fully restored, that's, sitting at $350,000 or whatever, and it's perfect. You don't want something that you're too scared to drive. You don't want something that you're worried about. You don't want something that you can't enjoy. You know what I mean? So there's a fine line there too, where, at least with my 997, I'm not, I care about it and it annoys me when something happens to it, but I'm not scared to drive it. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about driving it. And your 997, you're like that too. It's gone up in value. It's doubled in value or whatever, it's happened in value. But you're not scared to drive it. It's not like you get,
No.
I don't want to put kilometers on it, or I don't want to get it wrecked, or, I've spent $400,000 on the restoration of a 911S and I can't drive it. You know what I mean? Because
I'd gladly drive it into a shopping centre car park and, walk in and walk back out again and not sort of freak out about what's kind of happening to it.
And that's the important thing about being, owning a Porsche is you still have to buy something that you're not scared of driving, that you're not going to be too precious with, that you have to enjoy. And being a Porsche enthusiast, being a Porsche driver, it's weird. What determines our Porsche direction, Steve? I mean, obviously it's funds and priorities. We all can't have multiple Porsches at one time, but it's still good to try and experience as much of the brand as possible. And you've experienced, 964s and 993s and 997s, like I said. Would you, but here's a question before we leave though. Out of the 964 and 993, which one would you go back to if you were looking at them again?
To go with my GT3?
Yes.
Oh.
Base Carrera.
Base Carrera.
Yeah,
so
964.
Carrera 2,
Carrera 2 964 or Carrera 2 993?
Whoa, I think maybe a 993. I still think it was a better car than the 964.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it was the better car. It needs tweaks. And I was just listening to your competitive podcast sort of today, and there was a bit of a conversation about it. But I just reckon the 993 is the better car. Like it in standard form, it's soft, and it sort of feels a tiny bit boring and sterile, kind of in like bog standard form. But once you kind of tweak it a little bit with an exhaust and some suspension mods, and maybe like a short shift thing, like the goldenrod from Fister, it's brilliant. And I just think it's better than 964.
Okay. Good place to leave it.
You don't want to answer your question from your Instagram?
Oh, the Instagram. Sorry, I completely forgot. I was more concerned about you had to go. So I had a quick question on Instagram, which I'm trying to find. It's here somewhere.
I've got it here if you want.
Yeah, you can read it.
Here
it is here. Here it is here. From Instagram, the Instagram is at wrist check and Canyon Drives. Sorry, I can't remember your first name. Sorry, I probably know it. I just can't remember it. He said, here's a watch and Porsche question for both of you and Steve. Would you sell your watch collection to fund a new purchase of a 911, that is GT3 or 997 Turbo? Currently have a 997.2 manual and lately been lusting over a 997 Turbo 6-speed. Now, Wrist Check and Canyon Drives also has watches on his Instagram, so he has watches as well. 997 turbo 6-speed, I noticed someone said the other day, the prices of those in the US is going crazy apparently. They're going up. They're going up so much, 997 6-speeds. But the 997 turbo 6-speed is like everyone's chasing it now. What do you think, Steve? Would you do it? I mean, your collection's bigger than mine, but would you do it?
My collection is... I don't... Like, I know it's not really like a dead sort of serious question, but like even if you kind of sold your watch collection, you're not going to get enough money to go and like buy you like a really good Porsche. so it's not really sort of, it ain't going to happen really. And to a degree, no, I don't think I would. But sort of like watches gives you a different type of enjoyment, and it's a different sort of ownership thing. I know you can't drive a watch. You can only wear it and look at it and all that type of thing. Some of them are kind of crazy dear, blah, blah, blah. But I do remember sort of thinking like when I was younger, kind of going, hey, if I go and buy get the 964, like upgrade from the S3 to the 964 or upgrade from the 964 to the 993, there goes my watch buying days. And somehow, like back in those days, I still kind of managed to do it. So somehow you kind of managed to keep the watch passion kind of going, even if you kind of did try to kind of pare it back. I mean, I think kids starting a family and getting married probably is putting bigger brakes on anything like that.
Yeah.
But, I don't think I would. What about you? Like, you're probably going to say the same thing. Like,
firstly,
even if you sold them all, you're not going to get it's not going to get you into a GT3.
Firstly, wrist check and Canyon drives on Instagram, so check out his Instagram and give him a follow. But firstly, 997.2 manual is what he owns at the moment, and he's been lusting over a 997 turbo 6-speed. If I had a 997.2 manual, I would keep it because I think it's a great car. If a 997.2 manual came up for sale in Australia, and it wasn't that much more of a difference from mine, I would be tempted just to upgrade to the 997.2. I would be tempted. Actually, I'd probably lie. If it was an S, I'd be tempted to upgrade into the S. I see what you mean about lusting over a 997 turbo 6-speed. They're quite expensive. I think you have a great car. I just want to say that first. Now, for me, for watches, I think that I would be upset if I did that. It would upset me. I haven't sold any of my watches, and I didn't start, I started, 20 years ago, a little bit more than 20 years ago. I haven't sold any of my watches, and I didn't buy watches for a long time, as Steve knows, for a long, long time. It's only recently where I've gone a bit crazy and bought so many watches in 1 year, which is a bit insane. I've sold one watch, and that was a 75 Omega that I sold when I needed cash, and I got a reasonable price for it from what I paid for it, and I regret selling that watch. It's not a super collectible watch. It's a rare Omega, but I regret selling it. So for me, I wouldn't sell any of my watches because all of my watches are bought at a period which makes me remember the reason why I bought it. From the very first watch to the very first Panerai, to my second Panerai, which I bought when we got engaged, to my third Panerai, which I bought for a birthday, to all the other watches.
They all have sentimental value.
Yeah, they all have sentimental value and they all have a story. Now I watched Jimmy Split, I think it is, on YouTube, the guy from Australia, the farmer who has all the watches, and he had a really good story on his YouTube. Do a search for it. I think it's Jimmy Split. He did a story about all of his watches and how he gifted them to his children. He bought them for his children, and he was going to keep them until they were older, but he gave them to them when they were younger because he said, because of COVID, they may as well enjoy it now. They may as well enjoy them now, And it's about how a watch has a story. A car has a story. A watch has a story. If I sold my watches, I would feel like I've missed out on something. And the enjoyment I get from watches and cars, I couldn't just get from just selling them to buy a Porsche. Do you know what I mean? As much as I love Porsche, I need to have a balance. And I think the balance, I like having both. And I'm a bit like Steve. You know what I mean, Steve? Like...
Yeah.
No, because it's
kind of like sort of saying, hey, are you happy to kind of live in a really pared back, very modest kind of home unit, whatever, in order to kind of save the money and kind of go and spend it on your dream kind of Porsche or dream car or whatever? It's like, even though I love cars that much, I don't know about making that degree of sacrifice or compromise to kind of get to it. Because I think you just sort of feel like you're missing out on other kind of spots.
Yeah, and if I was trying to fund a purchase of a new Porsche, I would just save. Luckily at the moment I have the ability to save. My wife and I have the ability to save, and I've saved a lot of money over the past few years due to working overseas and stuff like that. So I'm in the groove of it. I know, it's not hard for me to save anymore. So I know that if I wanted something really, I could actually save and use that money. Do you know what I mean? For a car. I'd rather do that than sell my watches, because I think if I sell my watches, I wouldn't be happy. And I also, to get those watches, going back 10 years, I couldn't afford to buy a watch like that. You know what I mean? So now the fact that I have, multiple Rolexes is kind of like, well, I've worked hard to get there. I don't really want to give them up. I don't want to give them up. You know what I mean? And I love wearing them. I love looking at them. Like you said, when you walk outside and you see it, it's it just makes you feel good. It's like a Porsche. It makes you feel good.
Yep. Great.
I think that answers the question.
So I guess that the answer to that question is no.
No. All right. That's about it. Thanks, Steve. I'll let you go. I know you got work to do.
Thanks, mate.
That was good. Cheers, mate.
Cool. All good. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the podcast, PorscheCooled Podcast it is. That was Steve coming in from Sydney. My name is Michael Barth, if you don't know already. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.